I was on a personal mission to take a nuke to my calendar. That was my personal mission.
It's kind of game over. You lose all respect from the entire business. It's huge.
No more excuses. No more branding band-aids. The art of positioning. Let's freaking go. You've built a business that pays salaries, wins contracts, and keeps clients coming back. But lately, the phone's quieter, referrals slowed, and your sales team's chasing leads that never call back. You've tried 20K on Facebook ads and a shiny new website, but growth, well, not so much. There's a fair chance you've blended in with your competition, and a fresh position and strategy to implement it consistently throughout your business will fix that. Check out the episode notes to find out more. This episode is sponsored by Dealfront, and in a few minutes, I'll share just why I think you'd love them. So today, we're all about what it looks like to bring your brand into the day-to-day business operations for a consistent customer experience without adding an extra workload that has your team side-eyeing you. And we've got on two experts. First up is Brandon Gano, who's failed many times, and won at selling a seven-figure business, who likes to refer to the pursuit as a game he quite likes. Is it more like poker or is it like volleyball? Is my question.
I guess it's what you make of it, right? And you said expert. I just want to get that term off the table next to my name before we go any further in this episode. I'm just here to have a good time and share what I've learned. Hopefully it helps some people.
But I'm not wrong to say that you're currently the CEO at Human Ops Technologies, yes?
You got that one right. Yep.
Okay, one thing, we mark that off. And we have Emma Cowling, who's coached over 15,000 people. And if that's not enough of a day's work, she also fields construction site fights. Okay, maybe that was just once, but still. Are you still using these fighting techniques?
I mean, I've got two little boys that are 4 and 7. They definitely come in handy. I just hope there's less from my clients than from my kids.
You just step in between, use some kung fu.
Yeah, just separate, then talk.
Naughty corner, just like we were just talking about before. Instead of having people go on recorders, we're just go into the naughty corner.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So jumping right into the operationalizing of brand values, what do you guys think from your experience what that would look like, in the day-to-day, specific behaviors rather than policy changes that I tend to see quite a lot in businesses?
Emma, please, 15,000 people coached. That's expert comes in handy next to your name.
No. I liked what you said earlier. I think anyone that badges themselves as an expert is not necessarily to be trusted. I think lifelong learning is very important. There's a lot to unpack. I mean, when we talk about making things operational, it's about making things tangible for me. And every single thing that I do is tangible. It has to be tangible. It can't be fluffy, and it can't be, something you can't touch, feel, do. And I guess for me, when I think about values and how they come to life, I have two pillars in everything that I do. I have some things that hang off of them, but, it's all about freedom and control, and they feel quite woolly, right? So for me, when I think about freedom, I have to make it tangible. And I think about freedom to be who I need to be, freedom to become, freedom to fade, and freedom to fail, because what that does is articulate something very specific that I can get my hands on, that I know every opportunity or every client I work with, or even, people that I decide to be friends with, because with, early years in school, there's lots of different changing dynamics. For me, it has to align with those, and it has to be tangible so that it's fundamentally important to get that right. I don't know. there's a lot to unpack, and I just feel like I could go down a big rabbit hole. But I guess first and foremost, it's got to be tangible, and you've got to make it real for people.
Yeah, I like that. And, kind of building off of it, back to the people side of things, like if the people in your company are not bought in to the mission of the company and the values of the company for the right reasons, and they're just, like you said, they're following a policy, it's never going to work for an extended period of time. And if it does, it's going to require such significant oversight and management that it really won't be effective and scalable. So talking about operationalizing it, I mean, that's my jam, right? COO, I was a fractional COO. It's all about how the machine works to move the mission forward. But it really does all come back to the people and why they're there and why your business exists in the first place. So, I mean, step one is really getting that right. And then you can look at changing a brand, operationalizing the brand, and making sure that everybody's on the same mission.
So we're talking making sure that the team is trained well, so that, like, hey, there is that communication there, so that, say, for example, when values are updated and there's something that reflects the direction of the business or the values of how the owners want to see the business, that they pick it up. Is that the right understanding?
I would even question that a little bit and say, values for us when we consult with a business, if they're not clearly defined, or if you're changing them for some reason, there's probably something wrong already. Now, I will say, a lot of the businesses we worked with, they never put the time and effort into creating them in the first place. So that's one thing. But if you're just going to update your core values because you think you need a rebrand, so to speak, I really question where that's coming from, because your core values, by definition, should be the core of everything you're doing, right? So if you're just slapping words on the wall and hoping people follow along and they buy into these flowery statements, you're totally going to miss the mark. I've seen it over and over and over again. So I would say step one, if you have core values, make sure everybody knows them and agrees with them. If you don't, then is the time to create them. But yeah, I would never, ever recommend just revising them for fun or for a new brand position.
You know what? I have to kind of push back on this one.
Push back. Emma, we're about to get in a fight.
Oh, hell yeah. Let's go. Let's go.
I'm about to divide right.
Yeah, Emma, you're practicing here. What I see often in businesses that have been around, especially the ones who have been around for decades, are when they first approach their values and their mission and their vision, etc., they've just gone into them with the intention to fill in that space, be it on the website, be it on their company profile, not like to actually have some significance or meaning in terms of like how they're actually doing or conducting their business. They're words, but do we really see them in the day-to-day of business?
So in that case, I agree with you. Because they missed the mark the first time. If you didn't do it right, do it again. Start now, absolutely. But if you do hire by your values, if you run meetings, if you partner people by values, if you're doing all the right things with them, no, do not change them. But yeah, absolutely. If you miss the mark, then they should be revised and updated. But the beautiful part about that is now you have a team around you. You can get other people to contribute versus, coming from the top down and saying, here's the 5 things that I value and all of you need to get in line and sign this piece of paper and say you agree with me. That could be a collaborative team building exercise, which is, there's you can't put a price tag on the value of that exercise.
I agree with that. It's so important to get your people involved in your values and also really break them down into what it actually means, because one word on a piece of paper, or you're all in a room and you've got these beautiful flip charts, things mean different things to different people, and sometimes it might be a discrete difference, but that still it might start you on a trajectory where you're headed off in such different directions. And, you know, the power of getting everybody aligned in terms of what they want to achieve. People are much more bought into the business and the success of the business as a result. It's really, really powerful. I love starting with values right up front. But if they keep changing them, that's a big red flag for me, you know.
Or the ones where it's like 10 different values and they're like up on a wall. Yeah. Then, okay, I mean, what you guys were saying in terms of getting the team involved. So say, for example, they've gone down the original way where it was just values for the sake of having values and they don't mean anything. Are you going to make sure, like, you know, you're going to speak to each staff member or, you know, get in their votes or ideas, or like have a referendum, like have a meeting and get ideas and then go back to the owner and be like, hey, you know, this is from the team? Or the way that I would kind of approach it is like, hey, look at it from the owner side and also afterwards see if that reflects with the team and how they do business or how they do their work rather.
I think it comes down to what's the problem you're trying to solve, right? So are you noticing in your culture that people are not aligned, they're not driving forwards, they're not engaging with things as you'd expect? And is that because the values are not correct, or that the values are not understood, or the values are not bought into? Or is it something else? You know, have we got the right people at play? Have we got the right dynamics? Is everybody aligned in terms of what we're aiming to achieve over the course of the year? I think looking at the bigger picture, you know, what is it that we want to get out of this would be my first step.
Yeah, it's definitely a great first step. Why are we even having this conversation? What's the ultimate end goal? Assuming you're doing it for the right reasons, I'm always a fan of getting different voices involved. And one of the questions that we like to ask people is what are the behaviors that you really enjoy seeing exhibited in this culture, in this workplace, whatever, in the company? Because I'm not asking them for the one word. One word should never be a core value, because, Emma, I believe you just said it, like it could be defined 7 different ways by 7 different people. So we need to really identify what are the measurable and observable behaviors that people should exhibit if they work here, if they're part of this culture, part of this team. And going back to the intro, we call core values actually the rules of the game, because business is a game. So they're not core values. Let's get away from that mentality. It's what are the rules of the game? What are the rules of playing on this team? And so we want to get that feedback from people and say, okay, let's distill all of this down. Maybe we have 100 different things that people really love seeing. Then we can analyze it and say, do they fit into 3, 5, 7 buckets, if you will? And then we can start to craft the core values, the rules of the game off of those behaviors. And the way that we like to do it is doing a small statement followed by an explanation of what it looks like to demonstrate that behavior. So instead of integrity, that's a very common value I see from people, it could be something like, do the right thing is the phrase. And then what that looks like as a sentence or a phrase is do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Simple enough, but that's a very clear definition of integrity versus if I were to ask both of you, how do you define integrity before I said that? Who knows? We could have had 3 different definitions, but we want to make that as clear and as concrete as possible so there's absolutely no confusion about what the rules are.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Like having that definition behind each one, whatever they are, and going beyond like, hey, this is just a fluffy word that could mean anything to anyone. That's the key there. And you guys have worked with a lot of different businesses. Where have you seen companies mess this up the most?
Emma, what just popped in your head? your face said it all.
I think for me, you know, as with a lot of things that go wrong in a business, like communication is the biggest thing, right? Without a doubt. Whenever anything's a tell, the moment it's a tell, everything is broken. And, you know, I've worked in big corporate spaces, right? And actually, when a new CEO steps up and they're like, right, I'm going to shake it up. I'm going to shake this bag and see what falls out. And they set new values, they set new missions, they set a new strategy, which is, fine, right? In terms of the strategy, but to come in and change the values so that it meets some kind of random acronym, because that's what it feels like to everybody operating on the ground, everyone turns the words around and makes something different anyway. It doesn't work. Like, you can tell that there've been like a couple of people in a room that are out of touch with the frontline people, the people doing the job every single day, thinking, what on earth does this management speak, corporate speak? It doesn't speak to me. I can't touch it. It's not tangible. Again, I come back to tangible, right? They have to get the people involved, and it can't be a tell. It needs to be a two-way process. And if that's in an environment with 10, 20,000 people, there are ways to do that. You can get people involved in the change and actually move through. There are big frameworks that you can move through to successfully implement change. And that's one of the things I'm passionate about, is helping people through that change curve with the engagement and the communication. It's really fundamental for me. And yet it goes really wrong. When you set that wrong, it's kind of game over. You lose all respect from the entire business. It's huge.
I agree with that. And I think the easiest way to lose respect is walking around without a mirror when leadership puts things in place, or even if the whole company agrees on the values and they've all participated in creating them, and then the leader walks around like they don't even exist because they're better than or above, it's game over. And nobody is going to continue to believe them or believe anything out of that leader's mouth. And you're back to square one. It would have been better if you did nothing or didn't have values at all, because really, if you don't embody what the values are, what the rules are, it doesn't matter what you say, because they're only going to do what you show them, not what you tell them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's the biggest thing. Like, there's always that knee-jerk reaction, and that goes even beyond businesses to like politics, to like relationships. Just jumping into something based on like a feeling or a whim, and same thing for like rebrands. You're in a meeting and then you're like, oh, we're going to work on brand alignment. And then they roll their eyes there, because it's just like, this means nothing to me. Or like, this is adding on extra work. So they feel like it's more of a hassle to them rather than a part of what they're doing. And it's like, hey, I'm involved in this. I'm involved in this process. I'm involved or invested in growing with this business and growing in this direction. They actually care. Like, is it should we focus on training? Should we focus on having more one-on-one connections to have that empathy, that human connection? Or are there other ideas that you guys have?
I usually just start with questions, and it's not necessarily a framework or a tactic. I mean, there's a giant lit up question mark behind me. There's so much power in asking questions, asking follow-up questions, asking the right questions, the unexpected questions. If you show that curiosity and a willingness to hear somebody, not just to check a box, because I think there's also a lot of that in traditional leadership that I'm not a fan of. But if you ask people, what are you hearing from the customers, going back to the front lines, right? I mean, if you're not asking those people what the customers are saying, it doesn't matter what upper management and leadership votes on, because you're not catering to the people who are paying you. So what are you hearing from them? What are you lacking? What do you need more training in? Why do you think you need more training in that too? And not to accuse people of anything, but to say, look internally and say, did we drop the ball? Did we not equip you for this role? Did we not equip you with the right expectations of what success looks like? Are we not providing the customers what we say we're going to provide to them? That's your branding right there, right? Like, what did you promise the customer? What did they get? And what's the delta between the two? And if you can minimize that, that's my focus, is really making sure our internal operations deliver what our external marketing says it will deliver, and making sure we are happy on both sides of that line. Internally, are we happy? Are we performing at a high level? Externally, are customers satisfied? Are they coming back? Are they continuing to purchase? And it's that balance that it requires constant monitoring. You might get it right for a day, a week, a month at a time, but the market's always changing and people are always changing. So we need to keep a constant eye on that balance.
We do. And I think on that, like the people always changing, I think more work can be done in terms of understanding the people that work for and with us. Like, we don't always lean into where people naturally want to explore. And I think, I'm conversant in something called the GC index, and that basically means that there are 5 different dimensions of areas that light us up, that either charge our battery or drain it, right? And when we're trying to communicate new things to people, what we need to work out is, how can I communicate in a way, as a leader or as an individual of a business, how can I communicate in a way that not only is my preference, but also will light the fire of the person that I'm talking to? And how can I understand them better so that they get the kind of what's in it for me of bringing this strategy, bringing these values, bringing this branding to life? And it's hard to put yourself in somebody else's shoes when your natural preferences might be the total opposite.
Yeah.
But actually, the more we do that, the more we can influence positively, right?
So is it a matter of checking what that persona is for each person, maybe like as HR is bringing them on board, or like even as a part of the interview process, to check what's their personality to make this easier for managers later on?
Absolutely could be, right? So there's an assessment you can do for the GC index, or what you could do is work out how what you communicate hits all 5 dimensions. So if not everybody wants or has the time or the investment to do the GC index for all of their staff, or use it in their recruitment, which is very powerful, by the way. Actually, what you can do is look at, right, this is the message. Does this hit the why? Does it hit the what? Does it hit the how? Because these are the things that drive different people, right? Does it hit my ideas people, my game changers? Does it hit the people that really want to fundamentally drive the improvement, or that passionate about the people? Like, there are tools on the website that you can use where you simply put in your communication or your piece of text, or even a role description, for example, and it will talk about how it hits all 5 and what gaps you've got. So there are ways and means to make sure that you communicate in the right way. And fundamentally, we can ask people, right? They might not know, but we can say, tell me what lights you up. Tell me what really sucks the life out of you, for want of a better phrase, and really lean into it to make sure that we're being effective.
That sounds like a lot of maybe having a look at interview questions, like having a refresh of what those standard questions that everyone comes into interviews with, and being like, okay, how do I make sure that the person is the right fit in this way, that their approach also matches in with the business approach, like those values that we were talking about earlier. They have that reflection in terms of what their drive is.
Exactly, because most technical skills can be taught. Most technical things can be learned. But what drives us, what charges us, what drains us, that is some powerful information to work out what it is you need as an entire team dynamic. It's a big gap in the interview process, for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. Selfishly, of course, that's what our technology does at HumanOp. We can give you the blueprint of each individual person on your team. And yeah, I've seen it transform the companies of our clients, because we can predictively tell them if someone's going to be a good fit for a role or not. We can tell them if that role is going to burn them out. Emma, you're right. I mean, skills, anybody can learn skills and techniques and how to do something, but what you apply your effort to needs to be in line with that individual. Some people could say they love being creative, they love spreadsheets, whatever it is, but if that's not in line with who they are at their core, from a physics perspective, that it's just a matter of time before that person burns out. And as a person burns out, or like you said, drains their energy, it actually drains the energy of those around them too. So it's really a huge risk to bring somebody in without knowing them, whatever assessment technology you use, I'm a fan of using anything over nothing. Of course, I'm going to pat myself on the back and say you should probably use ours. But if you don't do that, you're really just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping you hire the right person in the right role. And it might work, it might not. But if there's a way to get really close to accurate, why would you not be doing that?
Sounds like, to hell with just looking at like resumes, like have AI just go through, like, these are the people that applied, go look them up, see what they're actually like, see what they care about, their general approach, what lights them up, what like exhausts them or burns them out, and approach that. So maybe we'll see a day where there are no resumes or cover letters necessary. Because at the end of the day,
I've never used them. That's just my personal. So here's what I do instead of resumes, because you have to put up job descriptions and people have to apply to jobs. We're not getting around that. But what I've always done is I made that a game too. I put little Easter eggs in the job description so I could tell who was reading it, who wasn't reading it. And then whenever they applied, of course they sent a resume. I don't believe I've ever looked at one, because it's a story of lies. That's just generally speaking what a resume is. It's the highlights of your career. They could have all happened in a 1 week time period over a 10-year career. And those are the things you're showcasing. Of course you want to show the good things. You want to get hired. You want to get paid. You want to get this job. But if you throw that piece of paper out, the story of lies, and you say, okay, is this person going to play within the rules of this game? Did they follow the directions so far? And then have a conversation with them. I was always able to, in my old business before I sold it, when I hired a good number of people, nothing crazy, but I was able to eliminate anywhere from 60 to 80% of applicants just because they didn't follow the directions. And if they can't follow those directions, they're definitely not going to be able to follow the directions if I hire them. So even though many positions get 100, 200, 1,000 applicants, depending on the role and the company, if you can get rid of most of them right off the bat without having to look at resumes, without having to rely on AI, because you really can't trust that either.
Yeah.
Why would you not do that? And then talk to the person, figure out who the individual is, and take it from there.
And to loop it back, okay, to what you were saying before, Brandon, about making sure that the customer's voice is heard. The biggest part of that, say, for example, there's like a showroom, there's that physical presence, or even over the phone. Okay, yes, for the phone, maybe the phones are recording, but in the cases where it's not, or it's in person, how are we making sure that the team is passing on that valuable feedback, be it positive, be it negative, be it whatever comment, to the rest of the team, and not just their manager, right? Like, say, for example, their marketing, their brand, the other operations. What are techniques that you guys see that might work for that, to resolve that?
There's a few, right? And it comes down to making sure that your processes are effective. And I say effective, not efficient on purpose, because, we want to make sure that we're doing the right things before we focus on doing things right. We want to make sure that everything is as it needs to be. And fundamentally, getting that customer feedback, it's a thing a lot of people avoid because it feels, oh, how do I get all of this feedback? It's going to be loads of verbal. Actually, you can do something very simple called a net promoter score. You can get people to rank you between 0 and 10. If it's 8 or above, then they're likely to recommend you to a friend, right? It's an industry best standard. And you can get some valuable feedback around that. You can track these things on KPIs and have very few, very effective KPIs. And these feedback pieces need to get back to the right people, and they need to get categorized. We need to look for waste in the process. We need to make sure that things actually flow end to end, and just cut the rubbish, right? Make sure that we actually focus on the stuff that the customer wants or the clients want that add value. And wherever possible, we only do the stuff that focuses on changing the fit or form of the product. We don't need much else. We just want those end results for the client, and everything else, broadly is a bit of a waste. I'm a bit of a lean nerd, so operational excellence. So very passionate about process flow, life flow, alignment, and making sure that actually we add value in everything we do. Like even my house has been like leaned. Everything is effective and then efficient. Effectiveness first.
Nice.
Did you throw out 80% of your kids' toys too? I know I do. I'm a huge fan of lean.
I've got rid of a fair few. I've timed myself taking a shower in the morning because I want to make sure that, cut the waste.
Right? Exactly. Exactly. I'm sure everyone has who's listening to this. I know I have.
As a kid, yeah. Not recently.
Oh no, mine was recent. I videoed every step of the process so I can. Yeah, there you go. Insight into my personal life.
That's for a different kind of podcast, though. I don't know if we're.
I think so.
Well, we'll just have like a side quest as like an environmental.
That's it.
I love it. No, I agree with you, and I want to. I personally like to take it a step backwards too, and say instead of just listening to all of our clients, which of course is important, you want to listen to your clients, but there's a select few of your clients who are really, really important to listen to. The 80-20 rule has shown to apply. And I'm a believer in it. I've studied it in multiple businesses that I've either owned or been a part of. And I want to focus on those people. So let's take the top 20% of your clients. You can go top 25%, whatever it is, wherever there's a clear divide in annual revenue or overall revenue produced by these clients. Talk to those people, and I like to ask them two very important questions. I first like to ask them, what do you really love that our company does for you? And the psychology behind that is it gets rid of the noise of, I don't want you to complain yet. I don't want you to tell me what's not working. I just want you to tell me, what do you feel is really, really important to you that we do for you? The second question after that is, I want to ask them, what do you really hate that my industry does? So not your company, because it lowers their guard. You don't want them to think they're attacking you personally or your company, because it gets a little bit awkward. But when you talk about the industry as a whole, let's do telecom, right? Or internet services. I was just on the phone with one this morning. I wouldn't be so inclined to tell that person what I really didn't enjoy about that interaction. But I would love to tell them that I have no idea why I need to pay a transfer service fee when I'm moving, and I have to go pick up the equipment at the store, and I have to pay them more because I'm moving. That's awful. Why would that industry do that? That company could have provided that same service, but I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the industry as a whole, right? So from a psychological perspective, we want to get them comfortable telling us what we do right and what they like so we could do more of it. And then what the industry does wrong and what they really dislike so we can do less of it. And then the final step in that process is to make sure you publicize that change and reward them for that feedback. So as you make improvements, as you internalize it, point it out to those people, make little notes in their files that they like these things, they dislike these things, and make sure to point that out to them, because that shows that you're listening to them and you value them as a customer or client. And what they say matters. It will give them permission then to continue speaking up. You never want to shut down your customers and their feedback.
How often would you do this?
All the time. If you have the opportunity, I mean, if you're talking to this top 20% every single day, that's a little bit excessive, but most people don't talk to those people all that often. I guess it depends on the industry you're in. I can give you my own personal experiences. I had clients who the top 20% in this business, I heard from them on a quarterly or semi-annual basis. So I would do it every time I talk to them. So 2 to 4 times a year, I think that's appropriate. If you're in an industry where it requires a whole lot more hands-on, maybe you increase that to monthly, but you do want to stay on top of it.
I love that. And I'm going to take a quick moment here to share a problem that I often find. And that's while your sales and marketing is busy reaching out left, right, and center, the target audience they're working on can be more nuanced. Not all businesses in a category will necessarily be in a position or have the spending power to work with you. Understanding exactly the minimum revenue bar, number of employees, or if a company is on a hiring spree definitely helps if they're in the right space. And that's why I think you'd love Dealfront like I do. It helps narrow down businesses by these filters and many more to get a tight as heck potential customer list. Use the link in the episode show notes to access your free trial, and an extra 10% off for the Art of Positioning listeners like you. And don't forget to hit those like, share, and subscribe buttons if you're enjoying this episode. So these brand values, if we loop it back to what we were talking about earlier, to make sure that they're reflected not only in those good times, but also the challenging times. So say, for example, you're dealing with difficult customers or tight deadlines or budget cuts. How can we make sure that even during those times, everybody is reflecting that? Are there any scenarios that you guys can share where like people are stressed?
I'm going to ask a question first, and that's, how did we get here? Because if it's a difficult customer, the easiest question is how did we let them in? Did they exhibit that they were in line with our company values? Did we break our values to work with this customer? And it's not always a yes. This could have evolved. Like you don't really know how someone's going to behave when you just take them on as a client, but have any red flags presented themselves that we didn't pay attention to? So that's kind of first and foremost. And then, this might be controversial, but if you have a difficult customer, get rid of them. You get to choose who you work with. I never am a fan of tolerating someone's poor behavior because they're writing a paycheck. That's just a no for me. I've done it many, many times. I've fired enough clients over the years to know that keeping them is way more stressful than eliminating them. The other side of that would be, budget cuts and layoffs. You have to start with the question, how did we get here? And is there something we could have done as leadership, regardless if it was your fault, if it was a virus's fault named COVID? I don't want to get you banned, B, I'm sorry. But is there something we could have done to foresee this, prevent this, or protect our people? You have to take ownership of that. No matter how much it hurts, how bad it makes you look, if you're not showing that as a leader, you're willing to admit when you make mistakes, it goes back to what I said before with the mirror, right? If you just say, oh, sorry, it's the market, it's the president, it's the virus, it's this, that, nobody will respect you because they're just going to assume you're always going to blame something else. So while budget cuts really hurt and laying off people is the worst thing in business as a whole, you have to take ownership and say, I messed up. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, this is the path we have to take to move forward, but at least help somebody with it, right? Like help them try to find a new job, give them an endorsement, a recommendation. If they're just like a total turd of a human being and you have to fire them, that's maybe a different story. But if it's something that you did, I always recommend just taking ownership of it and doing whatever you can do to get past that and make the situation right.
I agree. And I think like hand in hand with that is transparency. Where I've seen this go really wrong is where communication is not given at all. People are left in the dark, worried. The rumor mill starts going and the rumor mill is horrific. And, you see, again, leaders not living the values and going against what it is they're committed to. However, if there had been full transparency, if there was upfront communication about why this is happening, get the insights from the people as to why they think this is happening, to your point, Brandon, right? We can learn from it and grow in the future. I would also say it's quite I might be controversial here, but it's a bit of a lazy exercise when you're going through hard times to immediately get rid of loads of people. And I know it's not always as easy as that, right? In terms of black and white, and we do have to cut the numbers. But that is the first thing to go, and that is one of the biggest mistakes, because what you're doing is creating a rocky foundation, and the people that perform for your business, that deliver for your clients, they're going to see that and they're going to go. So what you're going to do is actually lose all of your best people and gradually lose everybody else too, whether it's actually physically or just in terms of effort and performance. So communicate, get them on board, and really go after the process, not the people. Work out what you can change and improve and learn and grow for the future. I know it's not easy, but yeah, I'm very passionate about that. I've seen it really go wrong.
I want to echo that. You're so spot on. We're working with a client right now. They're a global company, and they're going through a reorg and a series of layoffs. And we were like, please don't. Like, you don't understand the broader cost. And it's everything you just said. Their top performers are going to leave. There's uncertainty. You've introduced fear into the environment, into the culture. There's going to be that infighting and talking with each other, the rumor mill, like you said. I mean, it's so costly to lay off people. Whereas if you backed up and were like, hey guys, going through a little bit of a financial mess, what ideas do you have? You're here. You're part of this company. Let's solve this together. Let's make it a team effort. You can do so much more good. And some people may leave because there's uncertainty, and that's fine, because the right ones are going to leave, not the wrong ones. It's a different way to look at the problem. But yeah, eliminating people is way more costly than salaries and black and white. It's because there's also severances, right? Like, now you're paying for people who aren't there producing anything. It's so much waste. It's an ineffective model.
And even worse, not only the internal environment that it's affecting, it's also how the business is seen, because people are going to talk about that if suddenly you're cutting off hundreds of people, and that's going to reflect in how the business is perceived, and that's not going to be in a positive light, and it's going to affect the valuation of the business. If you want to sell it, etc., it's going to come back. So I mean, the question at the end of the day, what we're looking at here is like, do we please the investors or, go for the profit? Or do we stick to like, okay, these are our values, and what does that look like? Having that communication, being honest, being transparent, etc. Because I know a lot of business owners out there, they're like, well, the profitability, or like, well, there's these demands from investors, etc. It's a tricky balance.
I think the worst part is, as a society, we've come to accept it. I mean, I see on LinkedIn all the time, Microsoft lays off 6,000 employees. Oracle lays off 3,000 employees, whatever it is. I mean, insert the company name here. We've all seen those headlines and gone, meh, whatever. Doesn't affect me. Where layoffs come from is actually ineffective performance standards and people optimization. So again, this is what we do, and we've studied it and we've put numbers behind it. But when you hire people to make up for other individuals' lack of performance without analyzing why they're underperforming, maybe they're in the wrong role, maybe they're not incentivized by the right things to perform at a high level. Let's say on average, an average employee in these larger companies produces anywhere from 20 to 50% of what they're capable of sustainably. We don't want them to overperform and burn out, but sustainably, they're only at about 20 to 50%. So we have to hire another employee or two or three to make up of the lack of work that one person is doing. So now we have 4 people doing one person's job just to get from 80 to 100% productivity. When money's tight, who are we going to cut? The 3 that we hired to make up for the 1. We refuse to look at that 1 and say, what are we doing wrong that they're not performing at the level they could? If we would just pause for a second and reconsider the model, again, what can we do for this one individual to make sure they perform not 20 to 50, but at 80 to 100% of their potential without burning out, by inspiring them and actually lighting them up? We could eliminate all the layoffs because our company would be performing at an optimal level, and we wouldn't have to go through these peaks and valleys when money gets tight or when there's too much money.
Yeah. And you can get that right from recruitment. That's where it goes wrong, right? We hire the people that do really well in the interviews, but then they're not aligned. They're not being recruited based on, these different tools and techniques that we've got available to us that not many businesses are using, where you can actually look at who is a good fit for the team, the processes, the tasks, the impact, and the clients that you've got. Who is the right person? And, we get so far down the line that it takes so much to fix it. Whereas if we get it right up front, that's where you save all of that time and effort and energy. Like, you can get so much right and you can get so much wrong.
And those areas that you're mentioning, to reflect back, Brandon, are there things that you found that the companies consistently fail on in terms of their responsibilities to employees to make sure that they're performing their best?
Yeah, it's hiring warm bodies is definitely the first thing. Emma, like you're saying, I mean, if we don't put the right attention and effort on the recruitment and hiring process, we don't know if we have the right person. There's so many professional interviewers out there that they're so good in the interview because they know how to get the job. They know how to say the right things. And there's no real way to know how they're going to perform until they get inside the walls. Yeah. At that point, it's then about understanding that human being. Again, back to what I was saying before, if you don't know how much productivity to expect from somebody realistically, and you hold everyone to blanket standards, you're doing yourself a disservice, because blanket standards really come from the average of what's already being done in most cases. Let's use sales. It's a really easy way to visualize this metric. If you have one salesperson, or if you have a group of salespeople, we'll say, and they on average sell 10 units per month, anyone new coming in, their quota is 10 units per month. But if you break that average apart and you say, okay, our top performer is actually producing 25 units per month, and our lowest performer is producing 2 or 3 units per month, just so happens that the average is 10. Well, what happens when that underperformer is always held to the standard of 10 that they never meet? They get discouraged. And what happens when our overperformer of 25 is held to the standard of 10? Soon enough, they're going to stop working when they get to 10. And why? They're not incented to work any harder. They're not incented to get to 25. Maybe there's a bonus structure in place, but they keep their job at 10, at 11. They're the best one on the team. So if we look at that across the organization and say, wow, how many different roles are we doing that to hold these blanket standards where we're demotivating employees from two different ends, the performance of the company shrinks back to this mean that's overall damaging the entire company.
So then would you recommend to alleviate that, to have that in the job description, including like, okay, these are the values, these are what we represent. But on the backside of that, how much do people really read and remember their job descriptions? Yeah, that's part of it. I'm just like, well, should they do that?
I told you before, 80% don't. That's how I was able to eliminate all of them, because they didn't find the Easter eggs and follow the instructions. So the ones that do, they're there for the right reasons. But I try not to put blanket claims in job descriptions of quotas or expectations, whatever. They should be custom crafted when you hire that person to say, okay, again, we have the tools to do it. That's why we do it. But when we analyze who that person is and say, we think you should meet these standards, it's kind of hard to identify, with 100% accuracy at the beginning, but we can get close and say, for the first 30 days, 90 days, whatever, we think this is an appropriate target. Let's measure your results and assess how you feel, and we'll rework it and get it dialed in at the end of 90 days. That's an appropriate way to find metrics, quotas, standards, but it has to be to the individual, not to the role.
Yeah, you've got to look at what really drives that person as well in terms of intrinsic and extrinsic motivators, because, a lot of businesses are like, well, you're going to get this performance, you'll get a 2% pay rise year on year, or whatever the case may be. That's not going to motivate people long term. People need to be motivated by what drives them from within and what charges that battery, whether, they might not be an implementer type of personality. They might much more enjoy having the ideas or thinking about the strategies or bringing people on board, right? It's working out what lights them up and how to light that internal fire, because your extrinsic motivators will only keep that fire burning so long. It's going to peter out very, very quickly.
Absolutely. So this is, when your business is running normally, right? And so what happens in the case, say, for example, you're looking at a merger, you're looking at an acquisition or a major pivot? How do we go about making sure that those brand values stick? Because people have already started associating your business. If, we follow through everything we've talked about in this episode, that's already been implemented. Your team's following through. How do we make sure that sticks?
It's the $1 million question.
It is.
It depends. There's a couple different ways to look at it. If it's a merger and both leadership teams are staying on, hopefully they agree on the values at the baseline, the values. The mission should also be similar. You could have two completely different industries or markets merging. So your mission may not align, but your values should always align. If they don't, best of luck to you. I don't know if this is going to work out long term. The other way to look at it, though, is if it's more of an acquisition than a merger, where one of the leadership teams is leaving, the owner, founder, whatever. I think you have to understand the cold fish, warm pond metaphor. Whichever culture is bigger, the smaller one will conform to that culture. It's nearly impossible for the small cold fish to turn the hot pond cold. So it's just one of those things that it has to come from the top down still. But if the leadership from the larger culture is staying on, the smaller one, no matter how powerful your mission is, your vision, your values, people will assimilate to that culture over time. And it's really, really hard to have it go any other way.
And you need to define it, right? I think we shy away from this. It's like we're coming together, guys, or this company's coming under our company. It's so exciting. Just define what your values are, what you stand for, what your clients can expect from you, either in a transition period or for the longer term. Like, just define it. That's what we don't do. That's what a lot of businesses that I've worked with. It's a big gap, and then it leads to the ambiguity, and that's where people feel unsafe. That's where people vote with their feet, and where things start to go wrong. So again, upfront communication always. Even if you don't know, say you don't know. That's okay.
And the way I see it is also when you're doing that merger, it's back to the question of like profitability or your values. When you're approaching or when you're being acquired, etc., you're looking at these areas, ensuring that you check in advance that those align, that those values align, that approach or that underlying message is in alignment. That has to be there. Otherwise, it ends up being, you lose customers, you lose your team because of that friction. And how people see the business, it'll end up doing more damage, which lasts, I'm sure Brandon and Emma, you guys have seen how long it takes to build the business back up, if at all.
Yeah, it's a rough journey, that. And I've seen some where businesses have either sold off or merged, and actually what they've done beforehand is strip all their people back so that the business looks really profitable. And unfortunately, they just break everybody. And I think in all of this, no matter what the scenario is, whatever role you're in, is asking yourself the question of, is this the right fit for me?
Yeah.
Are they compromising on my personal values right now, or my boundaries? Does this work? Because when things don't feel right, there's a reason for it.
So there's one question which I ask on every episode, and that is, what is the one social norm that you want to push back on and help others to push back against? Now, this doesn't have to be specific to operations. It can be in general.
It's a big question, B.
I know. That's why I leave it right for the end. It's just like the last little knockout punch.
I think if I had to pick one in terms of a social norm, I mean, work-life balance, I think, is probably one of the biggest things that gets bandied about and badged as this mythical thing that we're all striving for. And it's even in a lot of businesses' values, we give our people work-life balance, and it's nonsense. It just creates tension, and it creates division and competition where it's not healthy competition. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest areas. I advocate work-life blending and flexibility and the permission that you need to give yourself so that you're not having to live in this hustle culture where you stay late all of the time and it doesn't work for you and you're compromising on everything and not getting what you need, versus, maybe some other people that are playing things to their advantage. for me, it's stop with the balance, with the constant tension, because it can't be balanced, and focus on blending. That's one of the biggest areas that I would push back on, and I am pushing back on at the moment.
Oh yeah.
I love that. I mean, even if you look at it by definition, what is a balance? It's two opposing forces competing with each other. I like how you said that. I use the word harmony, work-life harmony. Two things must coexist beautifully to create harmony. So, I like that. I would say probably some sort of putting on a mask or pretending. I think a lot of people, they think they need to act a certain way or look a certain way, perform a certain way to have a role. Even I see it all the time with entrepreneurs. We typically work with business owners who have teams in the 20 to 100 range, and they read a bunch of leadership books and they go to seminars and they think they need to be a certain way and they need to model Tony Robbins. And it's like, just stop, learn who you are and be that. Authenticity can't, not the buzzword version, but like authenticity cannot be overstated. Anything else you do comes off as inauthentic and unbelievable, truly. So if you're leading somebody pretending to be something else, nobody will buy into it. And you're just going to erode your culture and the respect of your staff. If you can learn who you are and step into that confidently, it will change the trajectory of your business. I guarantee it.
I love that so much. Sorry, I'm a big advocate of authenticity, and like you say, not the buzzword, the actual within. This whole fake it till you make it movement. Oh my goodness, I just want to push that off a cliff. Like, it doesn't work.
Let's do it together.
Yeah.
So
good. Up for it.
Fun fact, my first tattoo is a mask. That's how strongly I feel about that. That's it's awesome. Something that I think we need to go back. It's not even the workplace. It's schooling. It's that straight blind mice on the recorder.
Not the recorder again.
Yeah.
You were like, what now?
Everybody.
It's having that put into our system that we need to act a certain way, be a certain way. And that reflects in personal, in business, in every aspect of our lives. So I love both of those answers. Thank you so much, Emma and Brandon, for adding those glorious nuggets throughout this episode. Reach out to them and catch that deal front access in the episode description. And to you, my badass listener, thanks for listening to the Art of Positioning podcast. If you love this episode, a 5-star review goes a long way. Now, go get badass. No more excuses. No more branding band-aids. The Art of Positioning.
My time and I won't hesitate. Now's my time and I won't hesitate. Now's our time and we are tempting fate.
Let's freaking go.